Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a happy Sunday Morning Joe with Christina and Brooke. Today, we're coming to you with a topic of distance learning. There's more of it. It's not going away. So we better get good at it. We're going to have Joe kick us off with his thoughts.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of this is like specific to our area. I think most of the people that chime in for our videos they're down here in South Florida, most of them, and most of them are parents. So I'm wondering how much this will connect because I know down here in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, they're all starting virtual, right? So even though went virtual months and months ago, I think all of us with the idea that it'll be a bit, but then we'll go back to normal. Only for them to be like, no, we're gonna start virtual now, and we're not sure when we're not gonna be virtual.
Yeah.
Right. So that idea is crazy. So I think this is ultimately going to come back to something that we say all the time, but it's so true. I think ultimately it's going to come back to like the mindset that we approach this with, right? We're starting a new year, and whether or not we're okay just accepting that and being like, yeah, this is the reality of it. And now the ball's in my court. How am I going to react? How am I going to take a phrase that I've stolen from Christina over the last several months? Like, how am I going to own my response to this? How am I going to own my emotions? How am I going to own my the specific objectives that I'm going to try to reach over the next couple of weeks or months? So a couple of thoughts that I had connected to that are like, we have an idea of what this looks like now, right? The first couple of months were like survival. What are we doing? The schools didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what we were doing. But now we're 4 or 5 months into this. We should have a good idea of what this looks like, even though it's going to change. We have a good idea of what it's going to look like. And more importantly, like, we did it. We're here. Maybe it wasn't pretty. Maybe it wasn't easy, but we know how to do it. Like, we've made it through this far, which means we can do the next thing too. We can do the 2020, 2021 New Year rollout virtually. Might not be easy, might not be pretty, but we could totally do this. Practically, I think an important thing to think about for all of us is like, all right, so now that we're starting fresh, we're going into this knowing that we're doing it. It wasn't dropped like a bomb on us like it was back in March.
Yeah.
What are like the routines and the schedules and the rhythms that we can set up
Yeah.
based on what we know, like based on what we've experienced the last 4 or 5 months? How can we set things up to be more successful moving
Let's
forward?
go back to our first video.
Totally, right? Like, this is redo that one. And this will be the last thing I say about it. The last thought I had was, and I think, again, most people who chime into this or who kind of jump in on our videos are parents, I think. And I think there's a connecting point, at least in my mind, is remaining flexible and constantly seeking to understand like what's going on, right? Like, remaining flexible because things can change from one day to the next. And as parents, right, like, we're always trying to understand this little person that's across from us. Like, what are you thinking? What's going on? What are you struggling with? Why are you so emotional? I think that's heightened in importance now during this time that we're kind of all reaching the 5, 6, 7 month mark, and we're starting the new thing. We're still virtual, always seeking to understand when things aren't going right. Why aren't they going right? What's the underlying thing that's happening here? And it's kind of dig into that. So those are kind of some of my thoughts about what this looks like with us starting and continuing virtual and starting a new year virtual.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it's interesting because I was actually talking to a teacher in New York, and they are doing K-5 rollout in the classroom. And then for the older students, middle school, high school, they're doing virtual a couple of days and then in the school a couple of days. So yeah, it definitely varies by state, by county, on what's going on. But you're right, a lot of viewers on our show are from Florida, and they are going to be experiencing the virtual learning world. And just to your point, I mean, a lot of individuals that I've spoken to, they're like, should I send my child to private school because right now that's open and I need to do work? Or should I do the distance virtual learning and take a look at my schedule to see how I can support my child, or hire a tutor to kind of just come in and reinforce some things. So people are really, thinking about their options. But I so connect with what you're saying. It's like, meet your child where you are and try to identify what's important to him or her.
Yes.
Like, is this child independent? Is this child someone who can, read and do things on their own at home? Or perhaps is this child someone who needs assistance from a tutor or an executive function coach? Or is this someone who needs to go into a private school setting with other students if, the health risk is not as big of a concern for the parent?
Absolutely, Brooke. I love that you tapped into learning styles without saying like learning styles, but that's what it is, right? Consider the individual unique needs of each student. And all of those are amazing options, but they're not all amazing options for every kid. Not every student needs to be in a private school in person. Some students really thrive in this environment if they have the right fit and the right match. I love that you guys came at it from like that child student perspective. I was thinking a little more from like the teacher lens, because ultimately that's where a lot of the impact on ensuring success of our students comes from. So what can teachers do to make sure their kids are getting the most out of it? I think teachers, what we can do, and I know this, you guys know I'm so passionate about this with my background, like this is like, I live for this stuff. First and foremost, like what Joe said, focus on your mindset. You can only own what you can own, and don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. Build a community of learners. There are lots of Facebook groups and other social media avenues. You do not have to create everything yourself. Like, band together. You don't have to make every PowerPoint. Sharing is caring. Let's share with each other. Capitalize. Like, also what Joe was saying, like routines and procedures. The routines and procedures when we're online are a little different. Capitalize on building personal relationships and connection. I would say for the first couple of weeks, that's what it's all about. Get to know the learning styles of your students, and then utilize those parents at home to the level you need, and be open and honest with them. Like, hey, at the kindergarten, first, second grade level, we need more hands-on support at the house. And that's when you go back to what Brooke is saying, like maybe we want to consider a learning pod or executive function coaching, or, other resources out there. But teachers, there's so much. Yes. Follow the ISTE standards, ISTE. There's standards for students, standards for teachers. It will guide you in effective online instruction. And it's all about mindset.
Yeah. And I also say, come to our ADHD virtual ed camp.
Totally.
October 3rd on a Saturday, 9:30 to 3:30. I'm sorry, 12 to 3:30.
That was February, right?
Yeah, 12 to 3:30, and watch a ton of educators, coaches, tutors, business owners who speak to parents about, how to help their children in all different facets, and also speak to adults on how to function, at home with, executive functions, ADHD, and learn more.
I love you guys bringing those two together, because I think it really does kind of bring us full circle, where we have the benefit now of knowing what we didn't know, right? We didn't know we didn't know back in March or April in terms of how would we react to this, what's going to happen with work, just everybody going virtually. And we've had some growing pains there, but now looking back, whether it's Brooke's thought of like, hey, now that you've seen your kid at home for 3 months, what's the environment that's going to help them? What is it a private school? Is it not a private school? Is it online? Is it some kind of a hybrid? And the idea that parents who are able to see that, parents who can say, man, my kids really, I'm noticing this with them, that ADHD Ed Camp allows them to kind of pick and choose, like, man, based on what I'm seeing with my kid at home, or even as a teacher, like based on these themes that I'm seeing reoccurring with students that I have in the classroom, this session, there's, 30 gazillion sessions. This is the one though that's really going to help me with my kid at home or with my students in my classroom. I think the ADHD Ed Camp total should go, but it's just one example of kind of the type of support that everybody involved in education should be looking out for now, should be trying to connect with. Absolutely. Because we have the benefit of not just hindsight in our experience back, but also the benefit of knowing, hey, there's a start date. We've got this much time to prep. We know what it's going to look like. We know that this is going to be the new normal. Our first video, when we were like, oh, new normal, we had no idea what the new normal was. We might not ultimately know, but it's clearer now. This is a part of the new normal, this virtual world that we're going to be living in, at least for the foreseeable future.
Definitely.
Well said, guys. That was super fun. We will also post for you the resources below this video for the ADHD EdCamp Eventbrite link so that you can register, get signed up. We will have an idea of the list of sessions and what the topics will be coming very, very soon. We're also going to, we'll hold that. We'll save that little piece of information for later. Keep you wanting more. But also remember, good teaching is good teaching, and strategies that work for individuals with ADHD, especially when we're talking about the virtual environment, work for kids who are displaying signs of not being able to focus. So we'd love to have you come join us, and have a great day. Happy Sunday, everybody.